Hi everyone, and welcome to the next part of our TypeScript generics tutorial. Today we'll tackle a slightly more challenging concept, which is about conditional types. Now keep in mind that you won't often have to work with these, so it's not really a must, but it's definitely going to give you a head start and it's going to help you understand how things work better. So let's take a look at an example. Let's imagine that we want to create a type for an API response, similar to one of our previous examples, which is going to dynamically accept some sort of a type, and there are two options. So the first one is the following. If the type is null or undefined, by type I mean the original T type, we want our API response to have the structure of an object with a success property with value false, and just that, okay? But if our original T type has some other shape, could be like a string or let's say an object or something like that, of course there are multiple options, we want to have, for our API response type, we want to return an object with a success property of true and a data property which is going to have the entire T type. So whatever that T type was, we're going to use it here for the data. That looks kind of complex, doesn't it? How are we going to do it? Well, it's not very hard to write down. It's just that this general idea is a little bit hard to swallow at first. So I would recommend, if you haven't gotten this part, just spend a little bit more time trying to wrap your head around it. And once you're done with that, I promise that the code wouldn't seem very difficult. But that's the idea. If our original T is some version of null or undefined, our API response type will be this one. If T is a string or an object or anything like that, our API response will return this thing, right? And when we have two options, it's very easy to use a ternary operator, right? That's why we call this a conditional type. And here's how we'll use the ternary operator for it. I'm going to say the following. If T, and now keep in mind that for types, we cannot really use the equality operator. I can't say T equals null or undefined in any way. This is completely wrong, but I can use the extends keyword. Now, this seems a little bit weird in that context because T can't really add any properties to null or undefined, but you can just know that we use the extends keyword, although basically T is just going to be either null or undefined. And now I write a question mark. So I'm saying, if T extends null or undefined, then the type of my API response will be an object with a success property with value false, right? If it's null or undefined, then something went wrong, so we say that success is false. And now I write a colon. So the way the ternary operator worked is, if this is true, we execute this code. If this is false, we execute the code after the colon. So in case T isn't some version of null or undefined, then we expect it to be valid data. And the whole type will be an object with a success property with value true and data, which will be of type T. Now, I know that this looks kind of confusing, so let's look at an example. We can create a function which we can call process user response, and let's say that this one we have a valid user response, right? And keep in mind that currently we can't make it fully dynamic because we don't have live interaction with the backend. This is just a TypeScript demo, so it might seem kind of silly, but that's the most we can do at this stage. And let's say that it's not going to accept anything. I'm just going to hard code the values, but it's going to return an API response of, and for now, I'll leave the angle brackets empty. We'll figure it out in a bit, right? For now, I'm just leaving them empty. And let's say that this thing is going to return, or actually, before I write this, let's figure out what the API response will be. Let's say that this will be a valid thing, so the T will not be null or undefined. Let's say that this is going to return some data, which will have an ID of type number and a username of type string, right? This is our T in this case. And now let's see what the return value should be. Look at how cool this is. Now it says that the return value should have a success status of true and data with a number and a username. This X, by the way, came because I just accidentally mistyped an X. Of course, this is not part of the response. But look at how smart this is. So I'm passing this thing as the T type, right? And the first thing that gets executed is this portion. Is my T equal or does it extend nowhere undefined? Clearly not. This is not nowhere undefined. So this will be false. Fantastic. Therefore, we will not execute this and we'll move on to this part. So now the return type that it will expect is an object with a status of true and data of T. But data of T is this object, right? So that's how it works. Now when I'm returning, I need to return an object with a status true and data, which is a nested object with an ID and username. And it already detected it, right? If I hover here, we see that we expect success, true, success, true, and data, which is a nested object. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say return success, true. It kind of enforces me that success should be true because I'm passing valid data. And that's valuable, right? Success, true. And then I need data, right? We're following this structure. And now what is T? T is this object. So the value of data will be a nested object with ID, let's say 1, and username, let's say Pedro. So that's it, guys. There's nothing too complicated. It's just a little bit hard to get the syntax at first. Maybe it looks a little bit weird, but that's how it works. And now if I create a separate function that uses an API but passes undefined here, let's actually do that. Function process invalid response, for example. And let me actually hide the previous one. And we'll say it's going to return an API response and we pass undefined as our T, right? Because something is wrong, right? So in this case, what will the expected, let me just check what's happening here. Yes, we'll have to return. And what will be the return value? It should be success false. Why? Because we're passing undefined as T. Here we are asking, is the current T an extension of undefined or no? Yes, it's undefined, so that will return true. Therefore, we expect the response type to be success false as an object. So if I write success false, we're already ready to go and this is perfectly valid. This is how conditional types work in TypeScript. I hope this tutorial was helpful and interesting. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to share them in the comments and I'll see you in the next tutorial.